Hello, everybody. I'm here today with a topic that I care a lot about. And I have my computer right here because my memory is not the best. So if you see me glancing down, I'm glancing over at notes of key points that I want to make sure that I mention. But today's video is going to be a breakdown of what self care looks like for people in general because we talk a lot about self-care. We talk a lot about self-care when we are talking about burnout or mental health, anxiety, depression, when we are talking about caretakers who have a lot going on and we remind them like, "Oh, just make sure that you're engaging in self-care." Or just in general, something happens in the news that is horrible or when we're not feeling great, the first thing people mention is make sure you're doing self care. But self care is a pretty general term, means take care of yourself. And that means take care of yourself in a lot of different ways. So I figured I would break down self care into smaller categories to make it easier to identify what it is that you need in terms of self care in that moment. So, what you need for self care when you are exhausted after walking all day in Disney is going to be very different than when you need for self care when you just had a loss in the family and you're grieving. And one important thing that we have to know is when to pick and choose what it is that we need for self care within our own situations, which means we have to know ourselves pretty well. And that is something that not a lot of people take time to figure out. And it's also a really great reason to go to therapy and seek professional help. So, if that is you and you haven't tried therapy, I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I mean, I am a therapist, so that makes sense. I'm a huge advocate for therapy because it really does help break down and untangle a lot of your thoughts. But with that being said, this is just going to be a general video on different aspects of self care to pay attention to. It is in no way a replacement for professional help. So, if you do need professional help and if you feel like you would benefit from a therapist, please reach out to somebody in your area. But with self-care, there's many different ways. And whenever you ask somebody, what does self-care mean to you? You will get a different response from person to person. Very rarely will you get the same response. You can ask people back to back to back, and they will give you something different. We're going to start off actually with self-care in terms of physical health. Physical health is one of the biggest reasons why people struggle mentally, physically, emotionally. Physical health really does impact us in ways that are unimaginable. We have to remember at the end of the day, we are human, which means we need certain things in order to do well. Same with your pets, same with your plants. And focusing on our physical health is one of those. So, for physical health, this can be many different things. Getting enough sleep. Are you eating well? Are you exercising and moving around? Are you resting? Or have you been moving too much? And that is why it's so tricky because everybody's different. Every single person, every single human is different. The type of physical health, physical energy, or physical exercise that I need is probably different than what my sister needs. And that is important to know. Physical health is a huge aspect of self care. And that is an aspect that I'm putting first because I could argue that it might be one of the most important ones to do every day. Maybe not might. It is one of the most important ones to do every day. You want to make sure that you're not sacrificing sleep. You want to make sure that you're moving your body. And I am not in any way a physical coach or a trainer, and I do not have any type of training in nutrition. So I would recommend getting some sort of professional help in that area if you're just beginning, if you don't really know where to start, if you're thinking of changing your diet, if you're thinking of changing your physical activity, always go to your primary doctor first. But you want to make sure that you're doing what is right for you in these areas. Whether you need to get advice or not, as long as you're just implementing changes that are right for you, that is the number one first step that I would recommend to anybody when it comes to self care. Make sure you're taking care of yourself physically. Are you eating healthy? Are you eating? Sometimes people just forget to eat. So make sure you're eating. Make sure you're eating the proper nutritious foods for your body. Make sure you're moving. Doesn't have to be anything super complicated. Going for a walk, stretching, jumping jacks. I don't know. Dancing is one of my favorite ways to move my body. So just make sure you're moving, make sure you're eating, and make sure you're sleeping, which sleep is also another one that is important to note that is different for everybody. Some people need 7 hours, some people need eight, some people need 10. You just kind of figure out where you fall on that. Now, another aspect of self care that is very popular is stress management. Stress is horrible for our bodies. There's so many studies that mention how horribly it affects us physically, mentally, emotionally. It's just it ages you faster. There's so many things about stress that is just not good for you. So stress management these are strategies actually that you learn in therapy. These can be things like deep breathing. These can be things like meditation, progressive muscle relaxation, mindfulness. Stress management also can be things that are a lot simpler for some people. A good way to manage stress is listening to music, distractions, distractive activities, and enjoyable activities. But you want to make sure that your stress levels are not through the roof at all times. That is going to be also a very important part of self care that is going to look different every single day. Some days are going to be more stressful than others. You want to have a contingency plan. You want to have what I would call a safety plan for days that are really hard, where you know, okay, I had a really hard day. That means that I have to do some very extreme things for stress management today, as opposed to, oh, I had a pretty easygoing day. I don't really need to do many things. And exercise and eating right kind of fall into that stress management piece as well, because a lot of people use exercise as a stress management technique and it works very well. And also, just when we're stressed out, some people overeat, some people undereat. And physical health parts, aspects of self care, you want to make sure that they're intertwined. You do not want your stress levels to affect your physical health in ways of what you're already trying to change and improve on. Another big important aspect of self care is social connections. I know this sounds a little counterproductive if people are the ones stressing you out, but humans are not, we weren't born to be alone. We were born to have connections. We were born to have relationships. This does not mean you have to be in a crowd of a million people or out partying every single day. This just means even if you just have the one person. For my gamers, I always say, like, you don't have to even be in person. The gamers are constantly talking to people online. Maybe, let me not say constantly. There's a lot of gamers who just play by themselves, but like that could be a good solution. Having, instead of just playing a game by yourself, play a game as a team. And you're making social connections with people, hopefully making new friends, and also focus on your connections that you already have. Strengthen those relationships that already exist. This is really important for self care as well, because when we need somebody, that person, that connection will already be there. Plus, it really does help sometimes to get you out of your head when you just are able to speak to somebody else and they're able to just talk to you about, you don't even have to tell them what's wrong. They're able to just talk to you about whatever it is that's on your mind, on their mind, or maybe something completely random that makes absolutely no sense. You guys can have a good laugh and get out of your head in that sense. A big important aspect of self-care that I value as well is positive thinking. And this is more of, so we talked about physical health and we talked about exercise in order to maintain like that physical health aspect of self-care. But we also need to strengthen our minds in different ways. Positive thinking, and I'm going to actually include meditation in this one, are two mental exercises that people really struggle with at first because it's just not our natural way of thinking in today's society. So, think of this as weight training for your mind. So, you're focusing on trying to have a more positive outlook on life. So, if you had a really horrible day and you're really struggling to do positive thinking, then that's okay. Just try to find one neutral statement or one good thing that happened that day. And it could be something as small as having a really great cup of coffee before your horrible day started. That's okay, that's enough. It is a good way to start slowly training your brain. Just like you're not going to walk into a gym and automatically pick up 300-pound weights, you're going to start smaller. Maybe 2 pounds, maybe 3 pounds, maybe 5 pounds, maybe 15 pounds, and then you'll make your way there. Is the same with positive thinking. You're going to start small. If it's something as simple as your coffee, or you had a really good breakfast, or whatever it is, you had your favorite food for dinner, that's okay to start off. And then every single day, you're going to start building on that. You're going to start building on the positive thinking. And same with meditation. If meditation is something that you're interested in trying, it is also just like weight training. You want to start small. I wouldn't start off doing a 3 hour long meditation. To start off, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, if it's 5 minutes is too long, and slowly build up from there as a form of a mental self care as well. My last, well, I'm going to say second to last self care comment would be focusing on mindfulness. Now, mindfulness has been a buzzword in a lot of communities within the last couple of years. It has come to the rise, and it has been, especially in the mental health community, we talk about it all the time. And it kind of goes hand in hand with what I said in the very beginning of this video. Mindfulness really is just being in the present moment and just observing what it is you need. So, self care again is very broad. Mindfulness is very broad as well. It is a broad word of what it is that's happening in the moment, in the present moment. But it does help you narrow it down. So, if you're trying to do self care on the daily so you can avoid burnout long term, then you need to be aware of what you need every single day and what areas you need to improve on and what areas you're already doing well. Let's not forget that. You want to make sure that you're giving yourself credit for the areas you're doing well. So, using mindfulness as a way to identify what it is I need for self care is probably one of my most recommended tips, because in that moment, you can just stop, not be judgmental towards yourself at all, right? Which is something we do a lot. We're going to try not to be judgmental towards what we're feeling, what we did that day, how we responded. We're not going to judge it. We're not going to judge ourselves. We're just going to observe it. What happened? How are we feeling after what happened? And what can we do now to cope for self care? Whether that is, again, maybe something physical, maybe having a healthy meal, going to the gym, or maybe stress management, maybe doing a deep breathing exercise, or taking a bath. Maybe what we need is to call a person and have a social connection. We need a distraction. Maybe what we need is a good night's sleep. Or my last tip, maybe what we need is to schedule an appointment with a therapist and start working on our mental health with professional help. And that's kind of the end of this video. I am going to try to make smaller little reels for this. I'm doing it for TikTok, so I'm just going to try to put it here on YouTube as well. Of smaller little reels of these broken down into smaller videos for people that are not able to watch this full video. But this is just more detailed breakdown of what you can do to make self care more attainable and less general. So I hope this helped somebody. And if there's any other questions regarding mental health or self care that people are interested in me doing a video about, please let me know. It is one of my favorite topics. And if I can answer that on here in a general way without necessarily, like, again, it's not professional help. So it can't be very specific to a person in a more general way, then I would love to be able to implement more videos like that on this channel. Thanks for watching.